1 minute gone past 8 o'clock, right here on Flow FM 92.7. Today is Friday, the 16th of May, 2025. It's now time for the headline news analysis with Nicholas. I am Danielle Shitta-Bey. The headline news analysis is where you get to debate on national trending issues and make comments on any of the stories that were brought to you at 7 o'clock. You can definitely call in and make a comment or talk on it as a Nigerian right now. You can call in and let us know whatever it is you want to make a comment on any of the stories. And if you find any story on any of the national dailies, you can definitely call in as long as it is from a verifiable source. You can call in on 0807 777 9927. Again, 0807 777 9927. I have Nicholas in the studio with me this morning. Good morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning? How's your trip down here?
Well, fine. Uneventful.
Uneventful?
Yeah.
All right, then. How are you feeling towards the weekend? Is the weekend already?
Yeah, lots. Don't forget that the National Sports Festival will be open this weekend.
Okay.
And
that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. I intend to be there, to do some, maybe we'll bring in some, small details, on Flow FM.
All right, then.
Yeah.
We'll be expecting that to happen as well. The views to be expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7 or the staff therein, but are solely expressed by the analyst this morning, Nicholas. Let's get into the stories. And before we do that, this is to remind you that we're streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook this morning at Flow FM 927. So you can get on any of these apps and get in on the live action happening in the studio right now. Yesterday we were talking about JAMB and just generally the education system in Nigeria. And then we have another story this morning, still talking about the education system. This one is on NEL Fund. We have the student loan scheme may cover private varsity in 3 years. The managing director of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, Akintunde Sawyer, says the student loan scheme could be expanded to include private tertiary institutions within the next 3 years. And this was where he was speaking at a stakeholders meeting in Enugu. He was talking about the current focus is on the public institutions for right now, where a lot of students, are at risk of dropping out due to lack of funds. Mm-hmm. But, once the public sector, once public varsities are, a bit stabilized and they can get results, a review may lead to private university inclusion. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm a bit conflicted on that. Let us not forget that NEL Fund was created essentially to help indigent students in the university. Mm-hmm. And considering the fact that the cost of university tertiary education is getting more exorbitant and way beyond the limit of what most parents can bear. You understand? Mm-hmm. So it is very salutary. It's a very salutary, policy. And to a very large extent, from what we have seen, a lot of students have been cashing in on it. And having to extend it to private university, private tertiary institution is a bit. I think it's like I said, I'm conflicted because you see, for any parent to decide to take his or her ward to a private university, that means they can afford it. You understand? It is much more expensive than what you have in the government-owned institutions. So I don't see any need for now. What they should extend that to, or rather, I would prefer you have a TED fund, extended to that kind of to those institutions, not NEL funds. TED fund is there to assist in infrastructure, infrastructure build up in tertiary institutions, fund researches and things like that. So that has a long-term benefit for the country at large. But having to, streamline fundings for indigent students to tertiary institutions, private tertiary institutions where you have, for any student that goes to that, the parents have the end above the capacity of the average Nigerian parent. You understand? But again, there is a flip side to that argument too. But considering the fact that placement in universities, like if you look at the uptake of candidates into universities is way low compared to global standard in Nigeria. We're talking of the number of students that universities universities in the country should take. We still our admission rate is still very, very low. So the tertiary institutions, private tertiary institutions, tend to complement what federal government have, because we don't have the facilities. All the facilities are not enough to take the number of students we're talking about. The number of students. If you look at what happened in JAM yesterday, we're talking about 400,000 candidates from one zone alone. Just a few, Lagos, some parts of Lagos, and the entire Southeast region. You understand? And that is not the comprehensive lot we are talking about. That is not even the comprehensive lot from. So you need a lot of universities, to match up the demand for university education, tertiary institutions, and or every other tertiary institutions we are talking about. So you need a lot of infrastructure. You need a lot of schools. So when they cannot find placement in federal, state-owned tertiary institutions, of course, the alternative is to go for private. So, and sometimes some parents are forced into sending their kids to private institutions and see how they can weather it. So this might come handy. You understand? So I'm just giving you both sides of the argument. Like you understand? So now, for me right now, I think what NEL Fund should concentrate on is, number one, the governance structure of that fund. They fund the disbursement. That is number one.
Okay.
And they are guaranteed a better governance structure with government-owned schools. You understand? Because it has to follow routine. It has to follow some bureaucratic, tested bureaucratic routes, before it gets to the student. So it is easy to track the money there. But for private, that is where your private tertiary institutions, I'm a bit skeptical.
Yeah,
that is just it.
That was my next question. How would they be able to, where they are able to track for public institutions, how would they do that for private institutions as well?
For the private institution, I foresee a situation where the financial institutions they are going to be trusting to do the funding will have to do more. We'll have to do more in terms of monitoring that the funds get to where they are supposed to get to. But my fear again is that, you see, we know if just a few days ago we were talking about the disbursement of those funds to schools, and a lot of allegations. ICPC had to come in. Of course, we've been here. It's still a back and forth as to whether they actually meant what they said or not. But there has been complaints about the funds getting to the final end users, which are the students. You understand? So if that happens in government institutions where you have all these checks and balance, you have Savicom, you have ICPC, you have a lot of oversight. You have the lawmakers too, checking things like so. All those structures that you put there, all those strictures and structures, does not fully exist in the private tertiary institution. So that is where I have a bit of a concern.
Yeah.
You understand?
Well, we have the education aspects as well as Afe Babalola making sure and saying and urging the government to fast track this process to support all Nigerian students. As long as you're a Nigerian student, you have to be part of the scheme.
Yeah, he's a very big player in the tertiary institution, industry. Let me just put it that way, if it's appropriate. So Abu at his university, it's one of the leading private universities in the country, and they've been doing fantastically well. But it's a very expensive school. That is the point we equally need to meet. Then, of course, you have the Covenant too. You have the Redeemers. These are a lot of private schools. And of course, don't forget that the Wigwe University just came on board, and we, of course, looking at the footages that we've been seeing and social media and things like that. That is, it's way off above what you are used to seeing around Nigeria and Africa. So, but like I said, managing that funding is where I have a problem. Because you see, proprietors of all these tertiary institutions, especially the universities, are people who are politically exposed. They have a lot of political clout. You understand? You see, I don't see how when you take that fund to Abuad, for instance, and there are questions to ask. How do you take on somebody like Afe Babalola? You understand? Of course, he was in the news recently about the case of one man that was, abducted, controversially from Lagos to come and answer to charges that are not even existent in the statute, the state and federal statute. So I am a bit worried. Because within the university system, the state-owned federal, you have people you can control, people who are answerable. look at the chancellors of those schools. They don't have access to the purse, but it is easy for somebody of I'm not making any imputation really, but I'm talking about if that kind of a man comes and says, I want to, let me see what you have there, this funding and things like that, please divert it here. I'm not saying he can do that, but we've had instances like that. In fact, there is one particular university that I had the story. The person happens to be the father of a former governor, and he owns a university in one of the south states. He calls the accountant and said, go and get me 20 million. You understand? And the accountant, in fact, there was one particular instance where the accountant said, oh God, he said, looked him in the face and said, I'll go sack you. Now you get my school. You understand? It's a well-known story, that we shared that story in the newsroom at that particular, at some point. It happened in Niger, in one of the states in Niger Delta. It happened. The chancellor came and insisted that he must have that money. You understand? So my concern is with this Nel phone thing. If that kind of a man comes, if you have that kind of instance, you have the proprietor, the owner of the school, breathing down the neck of one of the directors to bring money. Is he going to be able to resist it? That's another thing to worry about.
Also, looking at the scheme, right? At the end of the school session or their career in school, there would be a way to want to pay back. Now, looking at how heavy the sum of payment in private universities, how burdensome would it be on the students after they get out of school to be able to pay for public or federal institutions already? It's really high already compared to what we had before. Now, looking at how very expensive private institutions are right now, and then they are part of the scheme. When they are out of school, is there not like a lot of pressure on some of these students, knowing about the unemployment rate that we have?
It's going to be a great deal of pressure, but I would rather they have that education. At least they have a fighting chance of paying back, of being something, amounting to something in life. I would rather they have that, and let us state for a fact that this wouldn't be the first time. It's a global practice where you have those kind of fund supporting students. When they come back, they start paying. In fact, there is this. I don't know whether it's apocryphal. They said even Barack Obama hasn't. At the time he was a president, he was still repaying
student
loans. You understand? So those loans are meant to be long term. They're meant to be long term, and like I said it's about the governance of that purse that really matters. You need to institute that kind of cast iron, governance structure, like we have, maybe something better than what we have in the pension scheme, for instance. You understand? The pension scheme has a lot of money there, and since that law was created, that law, the contributory pension scheme law was created, there has been relative transparency in the management of that scheme. You understand? So, and of course, a repatriation of the what is owed by candidates after schooling shouldn't be much of a problem. So far, you can track them wherever they go. Even if they travel abroad and they earn money abroad, there should be a way of repatriating the funds. So, yeah, it's going to be heavy, but I think it's worth it.
In the long run.
In the long run, yeah.
All right. The number to call to make a comment or be a part of the conversation is 0807-777-9927. Again, 0807-777-9927. Let's move away from that conversation onto another one. This one is coming from the chairman of the PDP and is advocating for peace and justice, Tom Fred Fish. He has urged the People's Democratic Party to zone its 2027 presidential ticket to the South and hand it to FCT Minister Barrister Nyesom Wike.
Well,
he's saying that Wike is the only credible Southern candidate capable of winning against President Tinubu, and not to warning that the party should not repeat the mistakes of 2023.
Wow. In politics, you hear a lot of things that are on the surface appears to be, how am I going to put it, ludicrous. You understand? We are talking of, he's talking about a minister who is currently serving under the president. And you are saying they should hand the ticket over to him to contest against his principle.
He made a statement of challenging Wike to either accept the ticket and prove his loyalty, that is to PDP, or continue with the APC, and letting Nigerians know where exactly he stands, because it seems like it's a bit sketchy right now.
Well, you see, the thing is that, in making a judgment call on this, you have to be very careful. What you do is that you look at issues around it. Wike himself has said that he's going to work for the president in 2027. So it is not unheard of that. In those days when PDP was the sole, the leading, the ruling party, there is this gimmick they used to do, which is that they plant a mole in other parties. That mole emerges as a presidential candidate. Then he takes the party ticket and he doesn't do any campaign. Whatever money is given to the party candidate, he makes sure that he don't use it to rock the boat of the PDP. You understand? So maybe one way or the other, PDP is having its own comeuppance too. You understand? They did it to other parties. So probably this is what is happening to them too. You're having, the party talking about a person that is currently serving the president they want to contest against in 2027. So it's really ludicrous. And for me, it's a farce,
All right. Again, 0807-777-9927 is the number to be a part of the conversation this morning. We have something really interesting to go on. Let's go on to another conversation. We have the federal government announcing a fully subsidized healthcare program to deliver free medical services to vulnerable and hard-to-reach Nigerians. This is a really wonderful development.
It is.
Especially for like free eye screenings, like the eye health. To concentrate on eye health, we have free eye screenings, prescription glasses, and cataract surgeries.
Well, if that's what they meant, that is not a new thing. It's not new, because I can, if I recall, was it a few years ago when I took my wife to a surgery at Buhari, Aisha Buhari, Modern Care in Ayankorin. I recall that in that process, there was that same measure came. It was under President Muhammadu Buhari. Free eye test for those who are around. In fact, we had to call in some of the locals, free eye test and free glasses, So if that is what they are talking about, then it's not new. There's nothing new there. It's always been happening. In fact, as a matter of fact, I recall even facilitating a free cataract surgery for some people, in Kwara State here. So I don't think that is a new. If that's what they meant, I was thinking that
it was a general thing.
It's a general thing,
health.
yeah, especially in the primary healthcare sector. Because you see, do you know what it takes to treat ordinary malaria?
Sorry to botch you, Nicholas. Let's pick this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay. We lost that call. Please do well to try to connect back. Please go ahead.
Yeah, do you know what it takes to treat malaria? Ordinary malaria fever. Malaria is not ordinary. A few days ago we were saying that in Nigeria now you pray not to get sick. That's the reality. So if they are talking about a scheme that is going to be meaningful, it's not going to be about eyes. Yes, eye.
It's very important.
Treatment is very important. It's very, very important. But you see, there are other more endemic, health issues. You talk of malaria, you talk of tuberculosis, you talk of all those things that are within the primary healthcare sector. The kids, children, and even parents, adults are susceptible to, especially with the change of weather. So I think I need something more comprehensive than what they have given.
All right, let's get this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you. What is your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Shitu. I'm calling from Songo.
All right, please go ahead with your comment.
Yes, my own comment is on student loan. You see, sending it to private school, to me, it's not a bad idea. It's considering a lot of things. Some parents were okay when they took the kids to the school. But at the long run, you get to see some students that lost their parents in the process or some other problem that may later resulted to maybe some of them will even drop out of school because of finance. So all I think they should be to put a lot of measures in place to, mitigate some, areas the analyst talked about. So that is my opinion about that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Chito. We appreciate your call. All right.
Yeah.
You made a very valid.
I said there is a flip side to that argument, and he has just mentioned one of them. But when you see, normally when a decision is taken about whether to go one way or the other, you look at the statistics. What is the statistics of how rampant in that kind of a situation? But that is not to say that it is not. It doesn't have its merit. It does have its merit. And there was while he was making that comment, another idea occurred to me that might just be a way of making the private sector run tertiary institutions competitive too. You understand? Because actually they need funding too. They need funding and they need more students. Then again, when you look at some state and federal owned schools, there are some choice courses where it's so difficult to get admission into, like law, for instance, like medicine, for instance. In fact, in some higher institutions, they make it in such a way that it's only the indigenes that get it, that get all those particular courses. There are some universities, federal, state-owned, public-funded universities that do such thing. In fact, there was even a particular case where, I'm talking of something I witnessed. A candidate who qualified for a particular course. I was told that he has to profess one particular religion before that admission is in the federal university. You understand? I don't want to be very specific because it happened at close quarters. I was part of the process. But these are some of the things. So when that kind of a candidate has an alternative, with NEL fund to go to a Bowen University, for instance, to go and study medicine, or even Covenant University if they have that kind of course, or even Abuad. You understand? Then of course he doesn't. He goes straight to that university and uses NEL fund to get what he wants to get. So I think there is merit in what Shitu has said.
Okay.
Yes,
All right, well, let's move to another conversation. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has claimed that he and ex-President Olusegun Obasanjo were able to swiftly suppress Boko Haram when it first emerged in Yobe State in 2002, and attributing the success of that to decisive political action. He was saying this and criticizing subsequent administrations for lacking the political will to curb the group's resurgence, and blaming poor leadership and under-policing for the prolonged insecurity that has plagued Nigeria for over a decade.
That amounts to oversimplification, in my opinion. Yes, they were able to manage it, but that is not what we had at that time. Was not the kind of political scenario we had at that time. Wasn't what we have right now. And don't forget that the making of the insurgency we are talking about now that has proven so intractable for federal government to crush is the kind of self-inflicted injury. You see a lot of political a lot of political players being the precursors and the instigators of the crisis because of their incendiary rhetorics. You understand? There has been a lot of stories about people, supporting, those insurgents just for political gains. Leading up to 2015, look at the concatenations of, rhetorics, that kind of fueled that, Boko Haram banditry that we have at that time. You even have opposition parties saying that attacking them is like, attacking a section of the country. You understand? So, Obasanjo didn't deal with that. Obasanjo Atiku did not deal with that kind of divisive politics at that time.
Sorry to bother you again. Let's get this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning to you. What's your name and where you calling from?
Good morning.
Morning. My name is Uwerunonye Aderemi. I'm calling from Asada.
All right. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yeah. All right. On this Mr. Dubai issue, that is Atiku. It's sad and very unfortunate that an elder statesman like him, because of his unruly ambition to govern, to lead this country, started spewing what should not be coming from the mouth of leaders. The two things that Atiku has going for him, that he's a Muslim and not, that is what he has to offer Nigeria. This man knew the truth about this Boko Haram. Boko Haram has to be a political arm of thuggery for people in the north politicians so that they can stay in government. Now, it was like that. When Yaradua came, Yaradua refused to fund these people.
Oh.
He refused.
Mr. Timlane, please, but let's be cautious with what we're saying. Thank you very much. Yeah, please go ahead.
All right. So doctrine of necessity came for Goodluck Jonathan to be there. And this Boko Haram now, the explosion will be another thing. What Atiku is saying now is not part of it now. What is his contribution to, as a Northerner, what is his contribution to getting rid of this terrorism that they poster on us? We are trying to manage this thing, to come out of this hood, and he is saying this thing this morning. What did they manage? Yeah, but what did he manage? Well, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Timlane, good morning. Yes, I can understand your feeling. I can understand your frustration, but if I may, please, Atiku has paid his dues, regardless of how we see him. And, an ambition to rule one's country shouldn't be described as inordinate. It is within his legitimate right to do that. You understand? And I think it's about time we understood that and allow people to express their ambition. It might just be patriotic zeal to want to do certain things before he leaves this plane of existence. That is on the one hand. Then secondly, I think it's a bit unfair if you describe him as Mr. Dubai. I understand that Atiku has brought a lot of frustration to a lot of people because of his ambition and things like that. But you see, we must be able to hold back and understand that some people have a right to aspire to certain things. You get my point. And then in terms of contribution, I must equally remind you too that Atiku was part of the June 12th, agitators. Mm-hmm. In fact, at a point, Abacha declared him wanted. You understand? So he has always when MKO Abiola was running when they were within this SDP, he was one of the people that stepped down for him. So you see, when you look at his life, you see a life of sacrifice. You see a life of trying to build bridges. And don't forget, he's a true Nigerian. His first wife is Titi Abubakar from the Southwest. You understand? He's a business that spans across the country. Mm-hmm. If you go to Intel's, where he has substantial share, it's like another Nigeria. You understand? Please, yes, we might not like the kind of politics an individual plays, but downplaying the role that person has done, it would not be fair to him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, because of our time is fast spent. We'll not be able to take any more calls. But your closing statement, real quick.
Yeah, well, the Nelfon thing is a welcome development, but I think that the governance structure is the key. If we can do that, then we are good to go. We are home and dry.
All right, that was a really wonderful end to the analysis this week. Join us next week again from 8 o'clock to 8:30 on Flow FM 92.7. The views expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7, but as expressed by the analyst Nicholas. I am Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.